So I always get accused by saying that every Lexus vehicle is amazing. Well, in today's video, I spent a lot of time with the new NX350 to see how it fits in my everyday life. In doing so, I learned a few things. So make sure you stick to the end of the video because I saved the best one for last. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content. Okay, so as I go through these, I need to set the stage. I've spent most of my time in the RX350. And previous to that, I was driving an ES. These are both big, mid-size luxury cars and sedans. The NX I thought was going to be very different. I sometimes paint them with the same brush thinking, is the NX just a smaller version of the RX? But I was wrong. It was pretty obvious, even my first day of driving the NX, that the handling and driving characteristics were way different than the RX. And what I mean by that is something I say to every guest that's looking at the two of them. The N stands for nimble. So the whole attitude of the NX is supposed to be agile, fun to drive, great handling and all those things. And it was pretty obvious the first roundabout that I took on my way home that night, where my RX would usually lean a little bit extra, the NX just seemed to be tighter and would go where I wanted it to go. So the handling alone of the NX was a nice upgrade to the RX. So I sort of started to look at it as like, not an SUV that's small, but more like a sport sedan that's big. And that reminded me to when the NX first launched. The NX was never supposed to be the Lexus RAV4 of the lineup. It was supposed to be the IS350, but on stilts. In fact, even when the RAV4 and the NX started to get a little bit close to each other, Lexus said no, the NX is still going to be born on Shimoyama, the racetrack in Japan. And yes, I sometimes forget about how fun an SUV can be to drive because I like my big comfy RX that's like driving a couch when I'm in the country roads and doing my commuting back and forth, and I forgot that an SUV could be fun. And the NX definitely did that for me. However, there is a downside to that. Having the new NX350H and the new RX350H share was pretty much the same powertrain, I thought it would have more get up and go because of it being a lighter platform. I haven't figured out why it doesn't feel that way. And I'm not gonna tell anybody that it does. It doesn't feel like it has this big mid-sized SUV power plant. Instead, it feels like it was made for the NX. And what I mean by that is it wasn't too like blow your face off type horsepower where I was being thrown back in my seat. However, it was still agile and quick enough. There was another thing. I noticed that I could hear the engine just a little bit more than the RX. And at first I was like, oh no, what is this? Is that maybe a lack of insulation under the hood? Is it maybe piped in through the speakers? And then I was like, well, when you think about it, being a nimble SUV, it's not supposed to hide those types of sounds like in the RX, where the average demographic of an RX owner is gonna have their music off and just like that really quiet cabin. That's why they're paying extra for it. Where the NX doesn't mind a little excitement. I remember the early commercials of the NX usually had windy roads and sort of a heartbeat in the background, where the RX usually had a very quiet nature drive. And that was a big difference for me. Would I still put them in a race side by side and see if they're different? Yes, maybe that's a video I'll do in the future. But for now, the Agile alone was a big difference. Okay, so the biggest change that I noticed when I got in the car was actually the size. Now, the RX versus the NX, we know the RX has more space, but it's still just two passengers. The space actually comes from just how everything is more spread out on the dash, and the NX has a little bit more of that cockpit, meaning when I'm sitting, I can actually reach everything without having to like stretch my arm too much, including the passenger side floor. So if I had a bag of cookies there, like chocolate chip homemade cookies from a friend of mine, I can be able to reach that from sitting straight up. And same thing with like almost even closing the passenger side door. So everything is just a lot closer to you, which gives you a little bit more of that sport athletic SUV that it is, because I'm way more upright than that little bit of an RX lounge that I was in before. And even though it's the same screen, it being closer to me, I don't know, it's almost like it was like a little bit clearer, I guess you could say. Also, I like that NX has kept the Sport Plus Eco button as an actual physical dial. I know I'm an optimist and I always find things that are great about some of the Lexus innovations. However, the fact that it's hidden away in things like the new RX, it does take a little bit away from like that feeling of like being able to put it in sport mode. It's kind of like when, you know, cell phones started to take over the home phones, and when you like go to hang up on someone, you don't have like that physical hanging up anymore. And now you just press like a little boop, where on the actual like drive modes, there's something about putting it in sport mode or putting it in normal mode that's a nice as a physical dial. It's gonna be the same when they actually, eventually, car manufacturers totally get away with any type of gear shift and like it just uses your head or something like that. There's something about throwing a car in gear, and there's something about putting it in a different mode there. Also notice the center console is a little bit smaller. You have your exposed cup holders and still like storage for everything, but all in all, it's just a little bit less of like a cushion, and again, a little bit more of that cockpit. Okay, so as far as the storage space is concerned with the NX, it's still very usable. I mean, this is a small SUV in the market, and almost at first looks like you would just have sort of like a hatchback car worth of space back here, mostly because of the body lines. And that was something I always forgot about, is when you see an NX in traffic, it looks so sleek, it looks so agile and sporty, you forget it's actually super usable. And the trunk definitely showcases that. It's a good height to load things out of, there's storage space on all angles, and they even went with like the soft tonneau cover so that you can easily fold it up and store it under this fake floor if you need a little bit of that extra room. Where the RX, you can't, it's sometimes hard to get rid of that tonneau cover. So even though it's a small SUV, there's still tons of usable space in that backseat. Now, I know this sounds silly because my last car was an RX, but I can't stress enough how much I love these door handles. The new electronic door latch is so easy to use, getting in and out. You can just like grab it and go. You just sort of push in one motion instead of like having to pull levers and use your other hand and stuff like that. I find it on the NX to be super smooth, really quick, and one of my favorite tech features about going with an NX versus some of the other vehicles in the market. Okay, so now if you stayed to this part of the video, I'm gonna explain to you the biggest reason why living with an NX might be a better bet than something like an RX. And that is features for money. And what I mean by that is you can get a fully loaded NX for like a $500 difference of a mid to low package RX. And you almost have to ask yourself, am I getting the extra money out of the RX, or can I use that to get some extra buttons and gadgets in the NX? And that was the other thing, is the NX has always been, since it was, you know, initialized in 2015, one of those techie SUVs with lots of buttons and gadgets. Some of my favorite are, because you're going to a cheaper or a less expensive vehicle and getting those extra buttons, things like lane departure assist. One of the silliest features that in a brochure might be like, well, I can change lanes. I don't need help changing lanes. But on my way to work today, just pressing cruise control and then lightly lifting up on that signal for 2 seconds, having the car being like, Dustin, I'm gonna change lanes for you right now, and having it beep and change lanes without having to put in any effort. I mean, you guys, there's a lot of novelty car features out there right now, but that one's pretty sweet. There's nothing more luxurious than having the car do something for you like that. And that's sort of all about what luxury is it not? Having something, an item, a materialistic thing, do something for you that you would normally have to do for yourself is exactly what luxury is. Going to those higher packages, you're also gonna get things like park assist, where you can press a button to park. Now that one, even though I love the lane departure alert, I use that one usually for a couple times to show my friends, to try it for myself. It's fun, but I don't think I would use it every day because maybe I'm just a control freak and I want to park my own car. I'm not too sure. However, that is one of the features that you get in that higher package. Things like the Mark Levinson sound system. My RX, being the mid-package luxury, didn't have that. So even driving this one home tonight, I was like, wow, I forgot how much bass that Mark Levinson sound system has. And being in the NX, all the speakers are closer to you because of the cabin is smaller, so I can feel and hear audio coming from every angle of the car. And I thought that was pretty great. Now, while we're talking about features, let's talk about some of the standard ones. Things like the Lexus safety system, especially with the proactive driving assist, where there's like a safety bubble around the outside of the car, so it is doing the braking for you. It is sort of like keeping you in your lane while you're driving through the city because there's that extra layer of protection around you. All of that's gonna come standard with any of the NX lineup for sure, but living with it every day gives a whole different meaning to driving. In fact, sometimes I'll drive my 2014 LS after driving the new NX, and I'll be like, oh, I forgot how much effort it actually takes. And sometimes I like that. Sometimes I like the extra effort of an analog car, like an older car. But sometimes, you know, when I'm on my way to work or on my way home after a really late filming session for this YouTube channel, it's nice to have the car doing a lot of the thinking for you. So why not spoil yourself with extra features if you don't need the extra space or the extra aspect of that RX? The NX might do it for you. Here's the other thing about the NX. It comes in so many different packages and drivetrains and even colors. I mean, I like this blacked out look with the F-Sport Series 3 black wheels and like a true black wheel, by the way. A true black paint, well, it's caviar, so there's like a little bit metallic there. But it does really have a little bit of flair and character and things like that. In summary, living with an NX every single day. It has a very efficient powertrain. Yes, you can hear that engine a little bit, but it's still super fun to drive. The steering is so light and you can take it and drive it like a car. Like I said, driving in a roundabout that I drive every single day from an RX into the NX and having just that little tighter. It's almost like the car was leaning into the corner with me instead of leaning away from it like the spacious RX was doing. Having that driving dynamic, being able to get all of those high-end features with the Mark Levinson sound system that gives you those higher-end speakers at a lower price point, you're saving on fuel. You're gonna save on being able to have those high-end features in the same price that you would have had going to a bigger vehicle. And all in all, it makes for an amazing value of a luxury SUV without really having to sacrifice anything other than maybe a little bit of space, but depending what you use it for, you might be okay with that anyway. So I could totally see the hype around it. The hybrid especially is really, really fuel economy wise for a great decision. Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you have an NX, what you think I should have touched on. I mean, I'm still gonna keep driving them and learn more. Just like I did with the RX, I'll continue to find things I love about the NX and be able to talk about them more and more like a true owner's review. So let me know in the comments below what you think and what you would have added to it. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And I always try to reply to any of my Instagram DMs, so you can always ask me questions on there and I will get back to you. I've already talked to a lot of our viewers and gotten feedback and given advice on anything Lexus and automotive related. And I'll see you in the next video.